Hello everyone! I would like to introduce you our group project Algae as a Filter from the Estonian Academy of Arts. Our journey in the Biodesign Challenge started with speculation on the topic of increasing weather phenomena in the city of Tallinn. We decided to implement algae in the water filtration system of the city. The journey starts from Tallinn city, which is in Estonia, a small country in the Baltics in the north of Europe. Tallinn is a coastal city of just around 420,000 inhabitants. The geographical position of the city is as beneficial as challenging. On one hand, the western side is in the Baltic Sea, which is so nice to have a year-round access to the water. However, sometimes algae in the sea is blooming and poisoning the whole aquatic system, animals, and also humans. On the eastern side, there is the Ülemiste Lake, which supplies the whole city drinking water, but there is no public access to it. Water seems to be under control, and we don't really worry about it. Tallinna Vesi company has built a system that pumps water from Ülemiste Lake, filtrates it, and delivers it to the people's home. After the water is used, it is then passed to the wastewater treatment plant in Paljassaare, then released to the Baltic Sea. Tallinna Vesi company mentions in the reports sometimes that their system is unable to treat heavy flows of incoming water. Therefore, to avoid major damages, they have to release untreated wastewater into the sea. According to reports, it happened 5 times in the previous 2 years alone. During those events, an amount of 80,000 cubic meters of wastewater was discharged into the Baltic Sea. This resulted as algal bloom and the whole aquatic system was endangered. Authorities had to shut down public access to the coastal water and no one was allowed to touch the water. What if extreme downpours due to the climate change will become more and more frequent? What if downpours becomes a new normal? Existing filtration system fails to treat wastewater flows and cause uncontrolled algal bloom. But what is algae blooming? Algae are a natural component of water ecosystem. The algae itself are harmless unless they start to grow uncontrolled. Then they can have toxic or harmful effects on the marine ecosystem. When some algae bloom or multiply, they can release toxin, especially cyanobacteria. So what happened underwater? Algae thrives in warm, nutrient-rich water. They absorb phosphorus and nitrogen found in the nature to grow. In natural circle, this is good for ecosystem. The algae convert sunlight into carbohydrates. The plankton eats these carbohydrate-rich algae. This plankton is eaten by other fish, and those fish are eaten by larger fish. And so the algae become part of the food chain. But when heat and nutrient are added to the water, the algae have more food than normally available. Therefore, they start to multiply to eat those nutrients. And they grow towards the light. As a result of their weight, they start to sink and then decompose. They extract oxygen from the water to grow, which every other living organism also needs. This process can suffocate entire ecosystems and create dead zones that extended over 100 kilometers. In addition, some type of algae not only absorb oxygen, but they can also produce toxins. With all of those consequences, this raises a question. What caused algae blooming? Heavy rainfalls wash excess nutrients from the cities, overload sewage systems, and over-fertilize fields into the sea. Calm winds allow also algae toxin to accumulate on the surface instead of spreading. With the climate change, the weather is warmer and more frequently, which also favors algae blooms. Moreover, deforestation, agriculture, and urbanization exacerbate the problem. Without plants and wetlands rooted in the soil, fewer nutrients can be absorbed. But how can we prevent algae bloom? One of the best ways to prevent it is to make sure that the water that is released into the Baltic Sea had been clean and will respect the marine ecosystem. So, we decide to reverse the situation. What if we decide to use algae to solve this problem? If cyanobacteria consumes nitrate, phosphorus, and heavy metals to grow, it is also mean that it could help us clean wastewater. So, our solution is to save the sea from algae blooms with algae. But how would it work? Let us explain here with the scheme. The beginning of our cleaning process is the same for most existing filtration system, the physical part. All of the solid parts that are in the water are taken away. Slowly, the filters are getting thinner and thinner, so it would leave only liquids or small particles in suspension in water. Then, it arrives in a big tank, where some coagulant is added to make sure the separation of the water, oil, and sludge, which then can be used for biomass. The water then goes to the algae bath, as we call it. The cyanobacteria loves to eat nitrogen, phosphorus, and heavy metals. It helps them grow. Those substances are a really good way to feed it outside of the Baltic Sea. After, the water laden from those substances needs to be separate from the algae and then directed to a pond. On the way to the pond, it will be exposed to some UV lights that help photosynthesis and also make sure that other bacteria and or viruses won't follow. After the separation, the algae can be used to also produce biomass or scientific research. Going through pipes, the water goes into the wetland, which increases the water quality. Algae is attached to the roots of the floating island and provide also an habitat for the wildlife. Then it is released to the Baltic Sea, lightened from the pollution that was in it. This is the physical embodiment of the scheme we just described. Aesthetically, it resembles how existing water filtration system look like, but with added colors, it is more inviting and evokes emotions towards the whole system. But where would it be located? The location is important and need to make sense. We realized that the Pailasaara area in the northwest of Tallinn would be ideal. In fact, a wastewater treatment plant already takes place in the middle of this area. It is surrounded by Pailasaara Nature Reserve and living neighborhoods. In front of the wastewater treatment plant, there is an area with a pond. This is the aerial view of the undeveloped area. We think that is a great potential for placing our solution for multiple reasons. Due to its location close to the city, it already has a public transport facility around and could actually serve people who live and work in this area as a park or recreational area. We want this space to be special for Tallinners. We want them to feel and understand the importance of taking care of our environment by showing and explaining the process of cleaning water and the consequences on the climate change and algae blooming. Overall, this is how our solution looks like. We believe that by introducing more sustainable ways to clean wastewater and by letting people appropriate the space and discover what's behind the water they use, we could raise awareness and draw attention to an existing problem of algae bloom and overall climate change. Our reflection and solution is part of the global process of reflection on the climate change. The problem of improper wastewater discharge is worldwide. For example, recently, Swedish media channel made a big investigation on how the Copenhagen wastewater company discharged unfiltered water straight into the sea. If this is happening in one of the most advanced and climate change worried countries, we can't even imagine what is happening in the rest of the world. Thank you.